If you had asked me 5 years ago what my definition of happiness was, I would have pointed to my little family without hesitation. Melissa, my beautiful wife, and Noah, our son, our miracle, our everything. Every morning I woke up to the sound of little feet padding across the wooden floor. Noah always beat the alarm clock. He'd barge into our bedroom with that squeaky "Daddy" and launch himself onto the bed like a missile of joy. I swear, no cup of coffee in the world could match that kind of wake-up. We had our routines. So on Saturdays we built pillow forts. Sundays were for pancakes and Lego disasters. Weekdays I'd drive him to preschool, blasting Disney songs on repeat until I knew every single word of Let It Go. I'd walk him in, kiss his forehead, and he'd always say the same thing. "Daddy, I'll miss you too much today." And I'd always reply, "I'll miss you even more, buddy." He wasn't just my son. He was my shadow, my teammate, my little best friend. Melissa and I had been married for 7 years. We met in college. She was studying psychology. I was a business major, with too many credit card debts and not enough sleep. She calmed me, grounded me, loved me with a kind of fierce loyalty I thought only existed in novels, or at least that's what I believed. When she told me she was pregnant, I cried. I was scared, of course, but mostly I felt this surge of pride and responsibility I'd never known before. I promised her, and myself, that I would be the best father I could possibly be. I read every parenting book. I painted Noah's nursery. Myself. I even learned how to install a car seat without swearing, which is harder than you think. The day Noah was born, everything changed. He came out screaming, red-faced and furious at the world. But when they placed him in my arms, he went quiet. Just stared up at me with wide, stormy eyes that I swore looked just like Melissa's. I didn't care about anything else in that moment. Not the lack of sleep, not the hospital bills. Nothing mattered except this tiny human who wrapped his whole fist around my pinky finger and held on like I was the only thing he trusted. That's when I knew I'd die for this boy. The first few years were a whirlwind. Diapers, sleepless nights, first steps, first words. He called me Dada before he ever said Mama, and Melissa pretended to be mad, but I caught her smiling every time. We took endless videos. His first bath, his first haircut, his first tantrum in Target. Melissa made photo albums, carefully organizing them by year, by month, even by milestone. She was always so on top of things. A supermom. She even found time to go back to work, part-time as a therapist, while still being the heart and soul of our home. Every time I looked at them, my wife and my son, I felt like the luckiest man alive. There were hard days, of course. No one's marriage is perfect. We had fights over stupid things, laundry, money, Noah drawing on the wall with permanent marker, but we always found our way back. Melissa had this way of softening her tone, sliding her hand into mine and whispering, "We're on the same team, Jake, always," and I believed her. Noah was growing up fast, too fast. He turned 5 this past March. We threw him a pirate-themed birthday party in the backyard. Melissa went all out, treasure maps, eye patches, even a cardboard ship. She made herself. I grilled hot dogs while Noah and his friends stormed the high seas. That night, after everyone left and the yard was a mess of balloons and wrapping paper, he curled up in my lap and said, "Daddy, this was the best day ever." I kissed the top of his head and whispered, "Mine too, buddy." Looking back now, I wish I had paused more in those moments, just let them stretch a little longer, held him tighter, watched Melissa's smile a little deeper. Maybe I would have seen it then, the cracks beneath the perfect, but I didn't. I was too busy being happy, too busy being a dad. If I had known what was coming, if I had known that everything I loved, everything I knew was built on a lie, would I have done anything differently? Maybe. Maybe not. Because no matter what the DNA says, Noah was my son, and in those 5 perfect years, no one could take that from me. I remember the first moment something felt off. It wasn't anything dramatic. No screaming match, no secret messages flashing on a screen. It was quiet, too quiet. That kind of silence where everything looks the same, but you can feel the air change. It started one Wednesday morning. Melissa was in the kitchen making Noah's lunch. I was sipping coffee, half awake, trying to remember if it was trash day. Noah was sitting at the table, humming while drawing something with his crayons. I leaned over and kissed Melissa on the cheek, and she flinched, just slightly, but enough that I noticed. "You okay?" I asked, pulling back a little. She smiled. That practiced too perfect smile. "Yeah, just tired." I wanted to believe her. So I did. But the little things kept piling up. The way she'd keep her phone face down, even in the house, the way she suddenly had evening sessions with clients she never talked about before, the way she avoided eye contact whenever I brought up planning another baby. We'd always talked about having two. Noah deserved a sibling, we said. But now, she'd change the subject. Or worse, say she wasn't ready. Not yet. Still, I chalked it up to stress. Parenthood was hard. Maybe she was burnt out. And maybe we both were. But then came the doctor's visit. Noah had been having these weird coughs at night. Nothing too alarming, but enough that Melissa insisted we take him in for a checkup. I agreed. He was my whole world. I wasn't about to take any chances. We saw Dr. Cartwright, a pediatrician we'd trusted since Noah was born. He ran some routine tests and asked the usual questions. Family history, allergies, hereditary conditions. That's when it happened. "Any asthma in the family?" he asked, typing on his iPad. I shook my head. "No, none that I know of." Melissa was silent. The doctor looked up. "What about on the mother's side?" She cleared her throat. My dad had mild asthma as a kid, but it went away." He nodded, but then said something that made my stomach twist. "Well, the genetic markers we're seeing are more consistent with a dominant paternal trait. That's not typical, but not impossible." I laughed it off. "So maybe there's something on my side I don't know about." But something about Melissa's face changed. She wouldn't look at me. She just kept brushing invisible crumbs off her pants. That night I couldn't sleep. I laid in bed, staring at the ceiling, listening to the sound of Noah breathing through the baby monitor. Melissa was asleep, or pretending to be. The thought popped into my head, completely uninvited. What if he's not mine? I shook it off. No, that's ridiculous. Noah looked like me, didn't he? The same jawline, the same dimple on the left cheek when he smiled, but then again he had Melissa's eyes and her skin tone and maybe nothing else. I felt sick for even thinking it. What kind of father questions the paternity of his own son? What kind of man doubts the woman he loves? But I couldn't unthink it. Once the seed was planted, it grew. The next day, I casually asked Melissa if she remembered anyone in my family with breathing issues. She shrugged. Not that I know of. No hesitation, no curiosity, nothing. I tried to let it go. I tried so damn hard, but it was like a splinter in my brain. Every moment with Noah started to feel haunted by doubt. I hated myself for it. I'd watch him playing with his toys, completely unaware of the storm building inside me. I still kissed him goodnight, still told him I loved him 100 times a day, but in the back of my mind a question whispered louder and louder. What if I'm not his dad? It wasn't about love. I loved that boy with every fiber of my being. It was about truth, about trust, about the foundation of everything I believed in. I didn't want to accuse Melissa. Hell, I didn't even want to ask her, because if she lied, I'd know. And if she told the truth, I wasn't ready for that. So I went behind her back. I know how that sounds. Cowardly, dishonest. But I needed to know, needed proof before I let this tear my family apart. I ordered a home DNA test online. Simple enough. Cheek swab for me, another for Noah. Send it off. Wait 2 weeks, 2 weeks. You have no idea how long that feels when your entire life is hanging in the balance. Every night I'd tuck Noah in, kiss his forehead, and whisper the same words I always had. I love you, buddy, forever and ever. But part of me felt like a fraud. Like maybe I was just playing a role I didn't earn. The box came back on a Monday. Discreet packaging, no big label. I held it in my hands for 10 minutes before I even opened it. Melissa was upstairs giving Noah a bath. I sat alone at the dining table, heart pounding, fingers shaking, and when I finally opened the envelope and read the first line, I felt the world tilt sideways. Probability of paternity, 0%. Probability of paternity, 0%. I must have read that line 10 times before I truly absorbed what it meant. 0%. Not unlikely, not questionable, just 0. There was no way to misunderstand it, no room for error, no second page saying, "Just kidding, here's your real result." The silence in the room was unbearable, the kind that screams in your ears. My ears rang, my pulse pounded. I felt hot and cold at the same time. My stomach twisted like I was going to be sick. I pushed the test results away like they were burning my hands. Noah isn't mine. The words slammed through my skull like a hammer. I didn't cry, not yet. I couldn't. I was too stunned, too betrayed. I just sat there, numb, staring at the kitchen wall like it might give me a different answer. I heard Melissa's voice upstairs. Laughter. She was helping Noah into his pajamas. She said something about brushing teeth and bedtime stories. Her voice, so normal, so casual, made my skin crawl. How could she sound like that? How could she go on pretending everything was fine? Because she knew. I didn't want to believe it. But deep down, I knew she had to. No mother carries a baby for 9 months and doesn't know who the father is. This wasn't some accident. This was a lie, one she'd lived with for years. A lie that I had built my life around. I stood up slowly, feeling like gravity had doubled. Every step toward the stairs felt heavier. My legs moved on autopilot. I could hear my heartbeat in my ears. Melissa was sitting on the edge of Noah's bed, brushing his hair with her fingers. He was already half asleep, clutching his stuffed lion like always. When she saw me in the doorway, she smiled. "Hey, babe." He was a little hyper tonight, but I held up the envelope. Her face froze. Dead silence. Her smile vanished like it had never been there. She stared at the envelope, then at me. "What's that?" "You tell me," I said, my voice flat. I didn't yell, didn't cry, just held her eyes with mine like a gun between us. "You know what it is." Her mouth opened, closed. She stood up slowly, hands trembling. "Jake, please, How long have you known?" I asked, cutting her off. Tears welled in her eyes almost instantly. She looked panicked, like a cornered animal. "Please, not in front of Noah." I glanced at our son, already asleep, blissfully unaware that his entire world was about to fall apart. I nodded toward the hallway. "Let's talk downstairs." We walked in silence. I sat at the dining table, the same place where I'd read the results, and she sat across from me, twisting her hands like she was trying to wring the truth out of them. "You lied to me," I said. "For 5 years." Her lips quivered. "Jake, I never meant for it to happen like this." "Then how did you mean for it to happen?" My voice was rising now, despite everything. "You knew. You knew that he wasn't mine. And you let me raise him. You let me fall in love with him, believe he was my son, while you smiled and played house like everything was fine." "I thought he was yours at first," she said quickly. "I didn't know for sure until later." I slammed my hand on the table. "When?" She flinched. "Around his first birthday. I felt like someone had punched me in the chest. A year in. You knew. And you still let me. I didn't want to lose you," she cried. "You were such a good father. You loved him. You loved us. I was scared that if I told you, you'd leave and then he wouldn't have either of us." "So you made that decision for me?" My voice cracked now. "You thought that was your choice to make?" Melissa covered her face and sobbed. Big, ugly sobs. The kind that echoed in the kitchen and made my blood run cold. I didn't comfort her, I couldn't. All I could think about was Noah, the little boy sleeping upstairs, the boy I had stayed up with through fevers, the boy who called me Daddy before he could even form full sentences, the boy I had taught to ride a bike, whose laugh was my favorite sound in the world. Was he mine? Not by blood, but he was still my son, right? I didn't know anymore. Melissa looked up at me, eyes red and pleading. "Please, Jake, he loves you. You're his father in every way that counts. Biology doesn't change that." I stared at her. "No," I said, "it doesn't change that, but it changes everything else." "I need to know everything," I said, my voice cold and even. "No more half-truths, no more tears, just tell me the truth." Melissa looked like she wanted to disappear. She wiped her face with trembling hands and nodded slowly. I meant to hurt you, Jake," she whispered. "Start talking." She took a deep breath. Before you and I got serious, there was someone else. I clenched my fists under the table. Who? His name was Colin. We dated for a while when I was in grad school. It wasn't anything serious, at least not to me. But there was this one weekend. We weren't officially together at the time. I thought we were on a break. But I slept. With him. I stared at her, the blood rushing in my ears. You got pregnant that weekend? She nodded, eyes brimming with shame. I didn't know I was pregnant until weeks later. And by then we were back together, you and me. I didn't think it was possible. I told myself it had to be yours. I wanted it to be yours. Did you ever tell him? I asked. She hesitated. Melissa, I snapped. Did you ever tell him he might be the father? No, she admitted. I cut him off completely. I didn't want him in our lives. I wanted to move on. With you. My stomach churned. So you just gambled with our lives. With his life. I thought it was the right thing at the time, she said. You were so happy. You loved being a dad. I couldn't ruin that. And the more time passed, the harder it got to say anything. I stood up pacing the kitchen. I felt like the walls were closing in. I dedicated my entire life to that boy, I said, voice shaking. I gave up job offers. I passed on travel. I changed everything for him. For us. You watched me do that every day and never once thought maybe I deserved the truth. I thought if I told you I'd lose everything, she whispered. You lost it anyway. She crumbled into tears again, but I couldn't feel sorry for her. Not now. Not after 5 years of lies. I grabbed the test results from the table and held them up. This is the truth you buried for 5 years. This is the trust you burned to the ground. She looked at me, eyes full of panic. What are you going to do? I don't know, I admitted. I don't know what happens next, but I know one thing. I need space. I need time to think without you in my ear, without lies circling around my head. Her lips trembled. Are you leaving? I looked toward the staircase. I could still hear the faint hum of Noah's white noise machine upstairs. His nightlight was probably glowing with that soft blue light he loved. The idea of leaving him felt like ripping out my own heart. I don't know, I repeated, softer now. But if I stay, it's not because of you. She nodded silently, as if accepting a sentence she knew she deserved. I want the name of his biological father, I said. She froze. Jake, please. He's not part of this. He doesn't even... That's exactly why I want to talk to him. He should know he has a son, and I have a right to confront the man who helped create this mess, whether he meant to or not. She looked like she wanted to argue, but she saw something in my face, something hard, immovable, and she relented. His name is Colin Rivers. He lives in Portland. He's a photographer, I think. I haven't spoken to him in years. Give me his number, I said. She nodded and scribbled it on a piece of paper. I folded it into my wallet, hands still shaking. There was a long, painful silence. Then Melissa asked, in the smallest voice, Do you still love me? I didn't answer, right away. Not because I didn't know, but because the answer hurt too much to say. I don't know who you are anymore, I said. The woman I loved would have never lied to me like this, would have never let me build my world on a foundation of betrayal. Her eyes welled up again. But I still love you. I looked away. It's not enough. With that, I walked, past her up the stairs and into Noah's room. He was still asleep, sprawled out like a starfish, one leg dangling off the bed. His little chest rose and fell in a steady rhythm. I sat on the edge of his bed, staring at him for what felt like hours. He wasn't mine, but he was still everything. I brushed a hand through his hair. He stirred and mumbled, Daddy? My throat closed up. Yeah, buddy, I'm here. Night, night, he whispered, drifting back into sleep. I stayed there, in that moment, trying to hold on to whatever pieces I could, because whatever happened next, my heart was already broken. I didn't sleep that night. I lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling, the silence pressing down like 1,000 pounds. In the distance, I could hear Melissa crying softly through the walls. But I didn't move. I didn't go to her. I couldn't. Whatever we were, it was broken. And maybe it had been broken for a long time, I just never saw it. But Noah, he wasn't broken. He was innocent. And yet, he was the reason I couldn't breathe. I kept going over it again and again in my mind. 5 years. 5 perfect years. His first tooth, his first steps, his first scraped knee where he cried in my arms until the pain faded. All of it. Memories I treasured like gold. But now every one of them was tangled in lies. What does it mean to be a father? I kept asking myself. Is it biology? A strand of DNA? Or is it the moments, the bedtime stories, the long hugs, the love that keeps growing every single day? The next morning, Melissa made coffee. She didn't say a word. Neither did I. We were like ghosts, haunting the same house, just going through motions, afraid to touch anything in case it shattered further. I heard Noah upstairs, talking to his stuffed animals. Then he called out, "Daddy, where are you?" The words hit me like a hammer. I froze. Melissa looked up from her coffee, her face pale and tired. She didn't say anything. Again he called out, "Daddy." I stood, legs heavy, heart racing, and climbed the stairs. He was in his room wearing that silly shark hoodie he loved so much, holding a book. "Can we read the one about the moon pirates?" he asked, eyes shining. I stared at him. He had no idea. No idea that the man standing in front of him had just discovered they shared no blood. That the man who had kissed every bruise, clapped at every dance recital, cried when he said, "I love you" for the first time, wasn't his biological father. To him, I was still Daddy. I swallowed the lump in my throat and sat down beside him. "Yeah, buddy," I said, voice barely steady. "Let's read it." We read for 20 minutes. I stumbled over a few words, my voice cracking now and then, but he didn't notice. He was wrapped in the story, leaning against me, like he always did. When we finished, he looked up at me and smiled. "Are we still going to the aquarium this weekend?" The trip. I had promised him a special father-son day for his birthday. He'd been counting down all month. I couldn't lie to him, but I couldn't promise him anything either. "I don't know, Noah," I said softly. "Things are a little different right now." He tilted his head, confused. "Are you mad? At Mommy?" I hesitated. "We're just figuring some things out." He leaned into me, hugging my arm. "It's okay. I still want to go with you, even if Mommy doesn't come." That moment broke me. He didn't care about bloodlines. He didn't care about secrets or betrayal. He just loved me, the only dad he'd ever known. And I realized something in that moment. I wasn't just deciding what to do with my marriage. I was deciding what kind of man I wanted to be. Later that afternoon, I took a walk around the neighborhood. I needed space, clarity. I saw a father tossing a football with his teenage son in their yard. Another man pushing a stroller, looking exhausted but proud. None of those moments had DNA tests attached. They had love, time, consistency. That's what makes a father. When I got home, Melissa was sitting on the couch, eyes red, hands clasped. In her lap. "I want to ask you something," she said, her voice shaky. "And I want you to be honest." I waited. "If you had known from the beginning that Noah wasn't yours, would you still have stayed?" I didn't answer right away. I thought about the sleepless nights, the baby vomit, the lullabies, the first, "I love you, Daddy," the way he lights up when I walk into the room. I looked her in the eyes. "Yes," I said. "If I had known, but you had told me, I think I still would have stayed, because I would have chosen him, willingly, proudly. But what hurts the most is that I never got the chance to make that choice. You made it for me." Tears streamed down her cheeks. She whispered, "I'm sorry." "I know you are," I replied. "But sorry doesn't fix 5 years of lies." She nodded slowly, wiping her face. "So what now?" she asked. I stood quietly for a moment, then said, "I don't know if our marriage can survive this, but I know one thing. I'm not walking away from Noah." Her eyes widened. "You mean?" "I'm not his biological father, but I'm still his dad. He needs me, and I need him." For the first time in days, Melissa smiled. A small, broken thing, but grateful. "You're a better man than I deserve," she whispered. Maybe I was. Or maybe I was just a father who knew what mattered most. I didn't expect much from the call. I didn't even know what I'd say. "Hi, I'm the man who raised your son because you slept with my wife and didn't know." Still, I couldn't shake the feeling that I had to meet him, not out of revenge. Not to punch him in the face, though that thought had crossed my mind. I just needed to see him, needed to put a face to the missing piece in this painful puzzle. His name was Colin Rivers. Melissa gave me his number. At first, I stared at it for hours. Then one evening, when the house was quiet and Noah was asleep, I called. He picked up on the third ring. "Hello? Colin?" I asked, my voice low. "Yeah." "Who's this?" "My name is Jake Williams. I think we need to talk. It's about Melissa. And a child, a boy, Noah." There was a pause, a long one, then, "Okay." 3 days later, I drove to Portland and met him at a small cafe just off Hawthorne Boulevard. I got there early, sat by the window, hands wrapped around a cup of coffee I wasn't drinking. He arrived 10 minutes late. Colin was not what I expected. Tall, stylish in that effortless artsy way, with scruffy facial hair and sharp eyes that scanned the room like he already knew everyone inside. He looked around, spotted me, and walked over. "You're Jake," he said, sliding into the seat across from me. I nodded. "Thanks for meeting me." "No problem," he said casually, like this was just another photo shoot gig he'd booked. I didn't waste time. I pulled out a copy of the DNA results and slid them across the table. "That's my son," I said. "Noah, he's 5. He's Melissa's child. And biologically, yours." Colin raised an eyebrow but didn't reach for the paper. "Wow," he said flatly. Okay, I snapped. "That's all you have to say?" He shrugged. "Look, man, I haven't seen Melissa in years. I had no idea she was pregnant. She never called, never said a word. You think I'd just skip out on a kid?" I studied his face. He wasn't lying, at least not completely. "I don't know what to think," I said. "I've been raising Noah since the day he was born. I fed him, I changed him. I taught him how to tie his shoes and count to 20. I was there for every moment. And then I find out he's not mine." Colin leaned back, exhaling. "Damn," he muttered. "That's rough." I clenched my jaw. "You say that like you're talking about a bad movie?" "Look," he said, "I don't mean to be cold. It's just, I don't know this kid. I didn't ask for him. I didn't even know he existed." "Yeah," I said, my voice rising, "but he exists, and he's amazing. He's smart. He's kind. He loves dinosaurs and pirates. He's afraid of thunder and gets sad when you skip bedtime stories. He's not just some random kid, Colin. He's a person, and he's part you." For the first time, I saw something flicker in Colin's eyes. Guilt? Maybe. Maybe just discomfort. "What do you want from me, Jake?" he asked. "Do you want me to come meet him? Get involved? What's the goal here?" I took a long breath. I wanted to see what kind of man helped create the little boy I love. I wanted to look you in the eye and tell you, I'm his father, not you. Colin blinked. "I'm not trying to fight you for rights or chase you down with legal paperwork," I continued. "I don't want your money. I don't even want your presence in his life unless you genuinely want to be there. But I had to meet you," I said quietly, "because for 5 years I thought I knew everything about my son. And suddenly, half his story had a blank space. You filled that space." Colin looked down, finally reaching for the DNA papers. He scanned them quickly, his expression unreadable. "You really love him, huh?" he asked. "More than anything," I said. "And if you show up now and mess with his head, just to disappear again, I swear I will never forgive you." He's looked up, meeting my eyes. "I'm not going to do that," he said. "Honestly, I don't think I'm father material. I never was. That's why Melissa didn't tell me. She knew. But you? You already are his father. You earned it. I didn't." I sat back, surprised by his honesty. "So you don't want to be involved?" He shook his head. "Not unless he wants me someday. If he grows up and wants to know who I am, fine, but for now, I think it's best if I stay out of it." I nodded slowly. Strangely, I felt a weight lift from my chest. "You know," Colin said, standing up, "not all dads would do what you did. Most would have walked away. I thought about it, I admitted, but I couldn't. He's my son, even if he's not my blood. He gave a small, respectful nod, then turned to leave. Before he walked out, he paused. Hey, Jake. Yeah? Thanks for being the kind of man I couldn't be. I drove home that night in silence, no music, just my thoughts and the soft hum of the road. For the first time in days, I felt clear. This pain would never fully leave me. But I understood now. Being a father isn't about DNA. It's about love, sacrifice, presence, and no test result could ever take that from me. It had been 2 weeks since I met Colin. 2 weeks since I looked the man in the eye who shared Noah's DNA and realized he wasn't the threat I'd imagined. He wasn't the villain in our story. He was just a missing piece. And strangely, seeing him made me feel more certain of something I'd been questioning since the truth came out, that I was the father Noah needed, not because of blood, but because of the thousands of moments that built our bond. One bedtime story, scraped knee and whispered, "I love you," at a time. Melissa had given me space. She moved in with her sister temporarily, giving Noah a simple explanation that Mommy and Daddy are taking a break to figure things out. He asked questions, of course, but mostly he stayed close. He watched me with those wide, trusting eyes, the same way he always had, and each time he did, I felt the weight of choice settle heavier on my shoulders. Could I raise him in a home? Without lies, now that the truth had torn through everything we built? Could I forgive her? Could I move forward with him without letting bitterness poison what we had? One Friday afternoon, I picked him up from preschool. He came running into my arms like a rocket, face lit up. "Daddy, look what I made." He held up a wobbly drawing, me, him, and Melissa, crayons everywhere. He'd written, "My family," in bold letters across the top. I crouched down and smiled. "That's amazing, buddy. I love it." "Can we hang it on the fridge?" he asked. "Of course," I said, and something in me cracked wide open. Team wasn't just a drawing. It was his reality, his hope, his belief that we were still a family. That night after he went to sleep, I called Melissa and asked her to come by the house. She arrived an hour later, looking nervous but hopeful. She stood in the doorway, eyes flicking to the fridge where the drawing hung, and swallowed hard. "You said you had something to tell me," she said. "I do," I said quietly, motioning her to sit. She did, and I told her the truth. My truth. "I've spent the last few weeks breaking apart everything I thought I knew," I began. "I was angry, devastated. I still am in ways. But I've also spent those same weeks remembering every single thing I do know." Melissa watched me closely, silent. "I know that Noah is mine in all the ways that matter. I know I've loved him more fiercely than I thought possible. I know I've been a good father, even if I was living a lie. And I know now that I don't need his DNA to keep being that." Her eyes welled up. "Jake, I also know that I can't keep pretending this didn't destroy something between us. The trust we had it's gone. And maybe someday it can be rebuilt, but it's not there now." She nodded slowly. "I understand. I don't want to punish you. I don't hate you. But I can't be your husband right now." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but she didn't argue. "But I am Noah's father," I said, firmer now, "and I will stay in his life. I want joint custody. I want to be there for every school play, every doctor's visit, every bedtime kiss, because he's my son. And nothing you or anyone else says will ever change that." She covered her mouth, sobbing silently. Then she whispered, "Thank you." We sat in silence for a while. Eventually, she stood to leave. But before she reached the door, she turned and looked at me. "You know," she said, "for 5 years I was terrified that the truth would tear everything apart. But in the end, it just revealed who you really are." I didn't reply, because deep down I think I finally knew too. A few weeks later, I took Noah to the aquarium like I promised. He held my hand tight the whole time, pulling me from tank to tank, telling me which fish were definitely pirates in disguise. At one point, he looked up at me and asked, "Daddy, are you going to be with me forever?" I didn't hesitate. "Forever and ever," I said, "no matter what." And I meant it, because fatherhood isn't something you inherit. It's something you choose every single day, and I chose him, always. The end.